Will the big, beautiful bill give 20 million more Americans an HSA tax break? Welcome to Retirement Revealed. I'm your host, Jeremy Keil, and we're here to turn your retirement savings into retirement income. Today, we're talking about the one big, beautiful bill and how it relates to HSAs. That's some news out recently. I saw on a few places like Yahoo and the Wall Street Journal articles here. Big tax breaks for health savings accounts get even better in the GOP bill. So we're going to talk about the articles that I've been reading about the changes that might happen in the new tax legislation. We'll see what changes. We'll see what goes through. And it's a reminder for us to see what we can do with our HSAs right now, even if none of these changes go through. But perhaps these changes are helpful. So I'm going to be referencing the Wall Street Journal article from Laura Saunders. Just came out recently. There's plenty of other articles out there as well too. And I'll tell you the number one resource for a lot of this is HSA Consulting Services.com. So I'm going to have a link to the articles and to HSA Consulting Services.com. Roy Ramthan is the president there, and he is known as Mr. HSA. He knows quite a bit of about the HSA area. So a lot of these articles reference him. But some interesting things with HSAs is that 60 million people are covered with HSAs right now. You might be one of them. And there's some things that might be changing to the point where maybe 20 million more Americans could be getting access to an HSA. If you're not having an HSA, then maybe this changes for you. Or perhaps if you do have HSA, here's some ways that perhaps you can do even better with your HSA. Now, the HSA, Health Savings Account, I want to make sure we all understand this is different than the flexible spending account that you get from your employer. I say get, it's available through employers quite often. The flexible spending account has this use it or lose it provision, FSA, flexible, and the HSA, Health Savings Account, does not have the use it or lose it provision, where if there's any money left over in your HSA at the end of the year, you still hold on to it. That's different than the FSA. And being one letter apart, a lot of people conflate those two and they treat their HSA as if it's an FSA. So I'd say right there, that's an important distinction. One, to make sure and double check, do you have an HSA or is it an FSA? If you have an HSA, you can continue to hold on to the money that you contributed this year that you have in your HSA at the end of the year, indefinitely, really, in a way, to the future. I suppose not in a way. Within 1 year after you die, the HSA funds have to go on out if it doesn't go to your spouse. So close enough to it's forever for you, I suppose. So the HSAs, those are only allowed if you have a health plan that meets a bunch of different rules, but that high deductible health plan, which is a deductible that's $1,650 or higher if it's just yourself covered, or $3,300 or higher if it's your family covered. They're looking at maybe making some changes to that amount that qualifies as a high deductible health plan. If they lower that amount, well, then that could allow more of the insurance plans that you might have eligible to have the HSA. Also keep in mind that the 2025 contribution limit to an HSA is $4,300 if you have that self-only plan, if it's only for you that's covered, or $8,550 if it's a family covered under your plan. And of course, if you're 55 plus, you can do catch-up contributions. That's $1,000 per person when you're 55 and plus on there. So some big dollar amounts on there. That's kind of the thought is if you have a higher deductible, then you are less likely to use your insurance for things that maybe aren't totally necessary. You're less likely to run to the doctor when you think it's free, right? When you're on the hook, you'll be more judicious with your healthcare decisions. And of course, $1,650 on your own or $3,300 as a family, that's tough to maybe reach that deductible. That's a big hit to a lot of people if you do get to that max, which is the point of the HSA, is saying because you have that deductible, here's a tax benefit to encourage you to save for your own healthcare costs and use your own healthcare costs, which brings me to how most people use their HSA. Most people I talk to, they make I don't want to call it a mistake, but here's a tendency that, two tendencies that people quite often do where the first tendency is that they feel like whatever I contributed this year, I've got to use it this year. I've got to, what I contribute to my HSA this year, I've got to use it up this year. We've already talked about that. No, you don't. You can allow your HSA to grow. Whatever you have at the end of the year can keep on going. The other tendency is that quite often towards the fall, you sign up for your health plan, you're working, and you decide how much you want to contribute to your HSA. And quite often you might put a lower amount. I see $100 a paycheck, so $2,600 a year, perhaps. I see that as a common amount that people put into their HSA through their payroll. And then I tell them, you could do $8,550 total. They say, I've already maxed out. No, you're planning on putting $2,600 towards it through your payroll. That's not maxing out. You say, well, yeah, I already did that back in the fall. I maxed. I can't do anything more. And that might be true where you can't change your payroll deduction. Although I would ask, maybe you can change your payroll deduction. But you can contribute outside of your payroll. Most Americans, most anyone I talk to, they don't realize that. Well, then let's say perhaps they do acknowledge that. They say, well, I can't add into my employer HSA. And I don't think that's the case, but let's just assume it is the case. You can have another HSA. So there's a lot of misperceptions where you might have thought, I'm going to put in $100 a paycheck, $2,600 per year, perhaps. And I want to do kind of the right amount so that I don't have too much left over at the end of the year because I don't want to lose it. Well, that's a misperception. You won't lose your HSA funds at the end of the year. And then they don't max out. The max is $4,300 self-only, $8,550 per family. They don't max out because they don't realize two things. Those two things being that you can add outside dollars into your HSA. It does not have to be from your payroll. And if for whatever reason, I don't know, an HSA provider would say, no, I don't want to take your money. Let's assume that your HSA account won't take your outside dollars. We can open another HSA account. It's not just because you have one HSA account doesn't mean you can't have two. That's a way to max out the HSA, which gets us to the number one way to get the most out of your HSA. It's for you to contribute money into your account this year, but don't spend from your HSA this year. You can allow your HSA to grow. And when a lot of people are worried about the cost of healthcare in retirement, saving ahead of time towards an HSA, perhaps putting even more in towards the HSA would be a helpful thing. I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb, and I'd encourage you to consider, and I say you have to do this. I'm just saying consider, what if you max out your HSA before you max out your Roth IRA? The HSA, when you put money in, you get a tax deduction now. You get the tax deferral along the way. And when you take the money out for healthcare expenses, that's tax-free at that point in time. So you get tax-free, tax-free, tax-free. It's the only triple tax-free account out there. If you're somebody that is not maxing out your HSA, look to see if you could max out your HSA. Often you'll get a better tax benefit than if you perhaps contribute to your Roth IRA. You put money into the Roth IRA, no tax deduction today. It does grow tax-free until you take the money out. You meet a little rules. Number one being reaching 59 and a half. You take the money out for any reason that is tax-free, but that's only 2 out of the 3. You don't get the tax deduction on the way in. So let's go through the article here. Big tax breaks for health savings accounts get even better in the GOP bill. Now we'll see if this big, beautiful bill passes. We'll see how it all changes on there. But the article references 10 different changes to HSA, and they pull through some highlights. I'm going to pull through what I think are the 2 biggest highlights out of there. I hope that they allow these two, even if they get rid of the rest. I'm going to say these are the top 2. I'll go with those. The top 2 changes that might happen in the tax bill is, the first one is that you might be allowed to still contribute to your HSA if you're on Medicare Part A. Right now, for whatever reason, when they set up these tax laws, they said that if you are on Medicare, you cannot contribute into an HSA anymore. And that gives a little bit of a conundrum as you're approaching 65. Some people are still working. If you're still working, and you might prefer your health plan to being on Medicare, you can stay on your health plan as long as it meets the rules. They call it group health coverage. Generally speaking, it's with an employer that has 20 or more people as an employer on there. But that's a decision a lot of people make, is they maybe want to be on Medicare Part A because if they qualify, there's no cost to that, but they don't want to lose the HSA. So there's a tough spot of which way do I go? Do I keep my HSA plan and still contribute to it, or to get on Medicare Part A? It seems like an odd reason for them not to allow you to have a high deductible health plan once you turn 65 and get onto Medicare. So that might be a change. Hopefully that's a good change in my mind. The other change is this idea of the catch-up contributions, where right now, yes, you're allowed to do $1,000 per person as a catch-up contribution once you reach 55 or later, but it's got to be a separate account, right? You and your spouse, and maybe just one of you has the family plan through that qualifies for HSA, and perhaps that's a spouse that you're contributing even maybe the max, the 8550, to that one spouse's HSA. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to put the entire family amount, the 8550, into one spouse's account, but only that spouse can only put their own $1,000 catch up into that account. The other spouse, if they're 55 plus and they want to do the catch up, you've got to put that into a new separate individual account for them. And I talk about it often, and it seems kind of easier. I've seen this quite often, where you're putting the whole max towards the one account and you're spending out of it. It's a lot easier that way. And then you maybe reach 55 and a half, or sorry, you reach 55 and you put in the 1,000 there. You say, well, if you really want to get the max, you can put 1,000 more to their spouse. And they say, well, that's it's nice and all, but that's an extra account, a lot of extra hassle. A lot of times they don't do that. So if they allow that, I don't see much of a downside to American society. It just makes life easier for people. I would love to see that, and that's something to look out for. Perhaps when they pass, if they pass the bill, look into what the HSA changes are, that catch-up contribution, along with HSAs being eligible to contribute once you reach Medicare. I think that's a great thing overall. Two other things they highlight, which should affect a lot of Americans, is that right now there are some HSA plans I've seen with Affordable Care Act coverage, but not that many. And the intent of one of the changes in law is to allow more of the ACA, Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, whatever you would like to call it, those health plans to be HP, high deductible health plans, to be eligible for the HSA. And this is important because a lot of times you're on an HSA allowed plan, you reach 60 or so, you decide to retire early, but you're not 65, you can't get onto Medicare, and you like the HSA for so long, but you're looking to get Affordable Care Act coverage, and the HSA eligible plans are not as numerous. You're trying to get maybe even making a decision. Do I go with the better plan, or do I go with the ability to do HSA? So this change here could help a lot of us that are wanting to retire earlier and are relying on Affordable Care Act, but want to get the benefits of the HSA. And the final one I'm going to show in the article, this one's an interesting one. Don't know if this will, this one might be an easy one for them to change. We'll see here. Drop, I suppose. It's in the proposal, not allowed right now, but it's HSA withdrawals for fitness expenses. So it would permit tax-free HSA withdrawals for expenses for fitness programs or facilities that aren't allowed under current laws. So you could withdraw up to $500 to reimburse yourself for your gym membership. If you're single, $1,000 for family. They have some other restrictions in there. One of them, of course, they're trying to avoid you maybe putting towards a country club dues. If that facility offers golf, sailing, horseback riding, or hunting, that doesn't qualify. Well, I think that seems to make sense. That's not the letter of the, or maybe the intent of the HSAs to begin with. So a lot of changes that are out there proposed for HSAs, and we'll see if they come through. I'll have links to the article so you can learn about those as well. And then also Roy Rampton's site, HSA Consulting Services. But it's nothing set in stone. And yet there's a lot of people that don't even fully realize what's available to them right now with the HSA. Keep in mind, the number one way to get the most out of your HSA is you contribute money to the HSA this year but you don't spend from the HSA this year. Allow it to grow towards the future, often towards your health costs that are in the future. It's a big help for you to explore the HSA, and perhaps more people will be allowed, and better usage of the HSA might be happening in the new tax bill. We shall see. Thank you for listening to the Retirement Revealed podcast. We believe if you know more about your money, you will feel better about your money, and you will make better money decisions. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil with the Keil Financial Partners. If you'd like to see how we help our clients get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, head on over to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.